Okay, hey everybody, this is Dr. Shaan from Vitality Chiropractic. Welcome back to our interview series where I'll be talking with other healthcare practitioners about their stories, how they got started, and of course, the people that they help. Today's guest is Sharon. Sharon is a craniosacral practitioner. She works with Therapy by Sharon, and she helps patients with spondylosis. Sharon, how are things going?
Hi, I'm well, all sheltered in place here.
Well, it looks like you're almost in a cave there with the interesting design behind you.
Yeah, it does look like a cave, right?
So, for people who have never been to somebody about craniosacral work before, how would you describe that to them?
I often describe craniosacral like a light touch massage on the nervous system. So how it's done is by placing my hands very lightly on someone's body and then just sensing into the tension in their body and helping their body facilitate the relaxation and healing process that naturally all of us have, this self-healing ability. So yeah, that's the gist of craniosacral, I'll say.
Okay. And how did you get into craniosacral therapy?
Hmm, that's a very long story.
Oh, we
Well,
all
well,
have them.
I had 2 years of craniosacral therapy on myself after recurring back pain from um, even way before I was pregnant. I already had like prolonged chronic back pain that never did got better despite years of physiotherapy. And then after I gave birth, it got even worse. And eventually, my physiotherapist, she recommended me to try craniosacral. And so I had it for 2 years. And yeah, I find that it really helps calms me down. But I never really considered working as a therapist myself until one time I was having a session from someone in New Zealand. So it got really deep. Like the connection went into the root of my emotional issues that actually caused the back pain. And then after that session, I left feeling like what just happened. It was a very it was a very deep process for me. There was a lot of crying. There were pins and needles in my body in places that I never knew you could have pins and needles, like inside the ears, in the mouth. So yeah, and then after I left and I was, like aching all over, so I was giving myself a massage, and I felt, oh, how come my abdomen is so soft now? Like it was really hard. Every time I go for a massage, they will always comment on like, why is your abdomen so hard? Do you have a tumor or something? And I'm like, no, I'm just born like this. So it turns out that that whole session, the whole process just unlocked like this state in me, this really relaxed and calm state in me that I never knew I could. And that was the start of like how I got interested. And then I decided, okay, I shall go and learn, to answer certain questions for myself. And over time, as I was studying and I was treating my friends, my family, it just ignite this really curious part of me, and I just got deeper and deeper, and I eventually decided to just start treating patients and having more sessions. And I really enjoy the whole process of connecting with people, helping them with um, uncovering their deep issues and helping them get this sense of calmness and peace that I have had experience for myself.
Okay. That's interesting. So actually in chiropractic, we have a technique called SOT, which is sacral occipital. So it's very similar. Do you mind, for people who maybe are watching, could you break down those two parts, the cranial and the sacral part, and kind of explain them a bit more?
Ah, the craniosacral. Okay, so when you are saying this craniosacral, you're referring to the name of the modality, right? Craniosacral therapy.
And also the anatomy part, because some people, they hear craniosacral, they may not realize that one part is here and one part is
Ah,
down in the
okay.
hips instead.
Well, crania refers to our cranium, which is the head, and then sacral refers to where our tailbone is, right? This sacrum at the pelvis tailbone. And for CST, in short, we call craniosacral CST. It is actually where the nervous system, our central nervous system, reside, like physically. And I often joke that it's from head to toe. if we ever have a toll in the nervous system. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And you mentioned as well about there being an emotional part. As I said, for SOT within chiropractic, it's not as much, to be honest, about the mental and the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
How does that then play into the therapy that you offer for your patients?
I often tap into as I sense into the tension in their body, very often it will, like if I were to connect really deeply with them and they might say something and then we will just be, going with the flow and hearing them out. Or sometimes it's just, I feel really tight, let's say in the spine. So I'll just be holding my hands there and just wait for it to soften. And if there's an issue that, if it sparked a memory for them, like, oh, actually once I broke my hip while I was in this taxi, there was a car crash and I broke my hip. And at that moment, I thought I'm going to die. So there was a huge trauma physically and also emotionally. And they might have forgotten about it. Like it could be a chronic issue for them. So maybe 15 years later, they come in and they have this chronic pain in the hip. And as I was holding there, it sparked this memory. And so we can go deep into this memory and helped the body come to a reconciliation with respect to, what, this is me now. I'm safe in the present and the car accident is already in the past. So when we break that connection, the body just naturally soften and unwind and and achieve this very relaxed state for them. And that's when I'll say the healing is done.
Okay, so tell me more about the people that you generally see then. What would you say is your typical patient?
My typical patients, well, while I do see patients with physical issues like spondylosis, I also do get a lot of people with chronic autoimmune diseases. And usually when they come in, it's like their last resort. They have seen like all kinds of doctors. They have done like maybe all kinds of complementary alternative medicine stuff. And then they heard of CST and they'd be like, okay, let's try this out. It's my last resort. So this is the typical crowd that I'm getting here in Singapore, I would say, because most people don't know what CST is.
Okay.
And so when they come in, actually a lot of them has a lot of like emotional roots rooted in childhood trauma or some kind of conditioning, stress when they are growing up in work. So there's a lot of, and most of them are women. Yeah, I tend to attract this group of people.
I say this honestly, and I say this as a man. Women, I don't think it's that men are stronger or more stoic. I think we're just more stupid. Like women are just better at taking care of themselves than men are, to be honest. Something I see all the time. You mentioned the word spondylosis there. I know it's something that some people may have heard of before. Could you please explain to them so they have more of an understanding of what spondylosis is?
So from what I know, and is limited as compared to what a chiropractor like you might know, it's just the fusing of degeneration of the spine, where the bone and the soft tissues are concerned. So sometimes it's aging, some may be due to other causes, and for some of them, their spine might actually fuse, and instead of like we having little discs of the vertebrae and then the connective tissue, they actually fuse and become like one huge piece of bone. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I see a lot of people where because the words are similar, there can be some confusion even between, say, that and scoliosis. So it's always nice to differentiate the two. So, what are some of the more challenging points of the practice that you do?
Okay. So in our practice, we were often trained to meet the client where they are, to be neutral. And I feel that it's actually very hard to actually get into that state of neutrality, to say that, hey, I'm here for you. I'm not trying to fix you. Because many of them comes in with a problem. And naturally, as someone who is in this therapy industry, we are just helpers, we just cannot stand to see people in pain and we want to help. But we have to, or rather for me, to go in holding on to the mindset of, hey, I'm here, I need to be neutral in order to be the best therapist I can be for you, to support you, and not try to fix you, because you are not the problem, but you have a problem. Yeah, so that has always been like just a whole cycle of coming back to learning the same thing over and over, and just a deeper sense of learning for me from ever since I began this work.
So when those patients do come in, then what does a normal process look like for you, say from the first time you meet them?
Well, I'll get them to sit down and we will have a chat. Very often do a intake form. Sometimes it's before the session. It's just like a short survey to see where they're at, what brought them here, and what kind of issues they're facing. Not just the medical condition, because it's so easy to label, like, I have this problem, but also the kind of condition they have been in physically, say at home. What's the work environment like? Is it very stressful? How's their sleep, their nutrition? And just looking at it from a very broad macro sense to see where they are at holistically. And then after that, I'll get them to lie on the massage table facing up, fully clothed, and then just, tuning into their body with my hands on their feet or the head, and then sensing where tensions are in their body. And that's when we start to facilitate the whole process of healing. It can be a total quiet session. There may not be a dialogue, but sometimes just holding the feet might just trigger them to cry, and it's all part of the release process. So it's not something that I can control or the patient can control, but I must say that it can only happen when they truly feel safe and supported. Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned, of course, before about the cranium, about the sacrum, and even the feet. Is there usually a particular body part that you would start with, or is it dependent on each particular person?
Well, I tend to start at the feet, but that's just how I, just my normal practice. But for some people, some other I have tried other cranial therapists who does it at the head. They always start at the head, so there's no hard and fast rule as to where to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for these sessions, then, how long typically is a session?
Well, I do my sessions about 1.5 hours now, because I tend to have the clients with emotional issues, and they do need that amount of time to get a good resolution, enough to leave the place being like really calm and ready to face the world. But if, let's say, someone were to say, I come in with a cervical spondylosis, and it would just be an hour session. Yeah.
Okay. And then typically, say if you have somebody coming in and maybe it is more of a bigger emotional issue or even more of a physical autoimmune issue, do you work or collaborate with other healthcare practitioners?
Yes. So for people with really strong like depression, if I were to talk to them and through the process, I realized that, hey, they might need someone with a psychotherapy background. I will often refer them to the therapists that I know who I trust, and I will actually work in tandem with them to support the client from a somatic and psychological point of view. And say if they need nutritional advice, I also refer to my functional medicine friends or naturopath. So I feel that having all these pieces, introducing all these different pieces of alternative healthcare, right, really supports a client in terms of building their resilience in life. And yeah, I've seen really good results from clients who are supported that way.
Okay. And I understand, you have a busy patient list, and until recently you were actually working in multiple locations. What do you think are some of the more important aspects of your success?
I would say to remain humble, to treat each process as a learning process for myself, whether it's seeing or treating clients, or if it's from the business perspective. And yeah, and having this kind of attitude really serves me very well so far. My clients, they tend to refer other friends to me, and that is how I'm getting my business so far. Yeah, I'll say.
Okay. And what kind of goals do you have for your practice and say even the healthcare professional as a whole?
My goals. Well, okay, so my background is not in healthcare. I was never a medical person. And for me to enter this industry, it has been quite a journey. And I never had the kind of support that I feel someone who, let's say, has been in a medical school for 4 years, 5 years, they have all kinds of trainings, they have psychological support, they have internship and all that. Well, for me, it's always been a try and error, and it's sometimes quite tiring. So my goal, I would say, I would like to also, have built a community of therapists who may have backgrounds like mine, not really in healthcare, but wanting to try this out. And I would really like to support this group of therapists and learn together and, just build successful practices together, because you know what, there are so many people suffering and all of them need what we can do, and we cannot heal everyone. So we just need to lean on each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen this unfortunately in the past with some colleagues, not just chiropractors, but within other fields as well, where there's almost this little bit of a God complex where they want to be the person that does the helping or be that, like you said, that guide for that
Yeah.
person. But even if you see 1,000 people in a month, there's still 10,000 people that could be seen if you had some staff and you work with other people. There's always better that we could do as a whole, of course.
I would, sorry, just to add on a little bit, because I must really give credit to my physiotherapist and my craniosacral therapist. The two of them supported me when I said I want to go for the class. And I was really blunt. I asked them, aren't you feeling threatened if I want to go for the class and then I don't need you anymore? Because I'm just really blunt. And they are like, no, of course not. That means one more person will be out there helping others. And at that moment, I was so touched. I just told myself I must really pass on this spirit, to the pie is big enough for so many of us, and it's really about helping people. It's not about helping ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I say this with my colleague, there's 150 of us in Singapore and there's 5 million people. There's over 50,000 to 1. No one has the time. For yourself then, how many people are practicing craniosacral within Singapore?
I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of them are actually physiotherapists who find like limitation in what they do, so they add this to their toolbox. I only know like a handful who have no background in this and are doing craniosacral therapy as their main practice. Yeah.
So we mentioned before about some goals in terms of, say, for yourself, say for the healthcare system we have in Singapore and even other systems in the world. If you could change something about healthcare systems, what would you like that to be?
I would like us to be able to work and collaborate with the mainstream medical community, because a lot of them maybe don't even know that we exist, or they might classify us as like a placebo without actually experiencing this for themselves. So I would like us to, and then there's the other group of like alternative therapists who goes like, no medicines are all chemicals, drugs, toxins, they're bad for you. So, there's this debate around, and you know what? We are here for the same reason. We just want to help people. So let's just collaborate and build this world to be a better place together. Yeah.
Absolutely. For the people that are currently at home for the lockdown, what kind of advice would you want to give them?
The same advice I will give myself: to be okay with doing lesser, to not beat ourselves up if we are not productive. It is okay to get through the day if you are just cooking or parenting, or if you just need to take like a 2 hours break and watch a movie on Netflix or something. It is okay. Yeah.
Okay. And any other practices you think people should be taking up during this time, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, anything?
Well, I'll suggest to practice taking deep breath that goes into our stomach. So one tip that I always give my clients when they leave the space was to, practice breathing in 4 counts, and then breathing out 8 counts. When our exhalation is longer than our inhalation, it actually helps our vagus nerve to be activated, and it calms our body down just naturally, just through breathing. So just take like 2 minutes or even 10 seconds if you are short of time. Yeah.
And before we finish today, then getting a little bit more personal, if you could speak to yourself, say 5 or even 10 years ago, what kind of advice would you want to give to yourself?
Be patient and trust in the universe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me today, Sharon. And thank you everybody who's watching this either live or watching on the replay. If you have any questions for Sharon, I've tagged her into the description. So of course you can contact her and I'm sure she'll be happy to help. If you have any questions for me, you can either put them in the comments, email help@vitalitychiropracticcentres.com, or give me a call on 8438-9550. Thanks for joining me again today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.